Hello, and welcome to Nonprofit Enthusiast Live, the weekly sessions where we talk about all things nonprofit. Whether you're a seasoned nonprofit professional or just getting started in the industry, these lives are for you. Our mission is to provide engaging and informative conversations with experts in the nonprofit world, sharing insights, strategies, and stories that can help you make a difference in your community and beyond. Each episode is centered around a theme for the month. The topics include anything from fundraising and marketing to volunteer management and board development. We'll explore the challenges facing nonprofits today and share practical tips and advice for overcoming them. But Nonprofit Enthusiast Live isn't just about learning. We also want to create a community of like-minded individuals who are passionate about making a positive impact. We want to hear from you and engage in conversations that inspire and motivate us all to do more. So whether you're tuning in during your morning commute, while doing chores around the house, or on a break from your busy workday, we hope you'll find something valuable in each episode of Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. I'm your host, Lashina Williams, and so excited to be back here with you all and back with our special guest, Dr. Angela White Jones, who we're excited to have back on to talk about this month's topic on Beyond the Pen, why readiness trumps grant writing. And what we mean by this is the importance of building your infrastructure, becoming a grant ready organization, in order to get you to a place where when you're winning these grants, you're able to sustain them. So that's what our conversation is really going to be around today. And I'm excited to welcome Dr. Angela White Jones to continue this topic. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure.
Of course. Before we start, do you mind? We like to start for those who haven't had the chance to get to know you yet, just sharing a little bit about your nonprofit journey.
Certainly. So I currently am a full-time faculty member and current director of the Masters of Nonprofit Management program at the University of Central Florida. But before that, I spent about, wow, now 15, 17-ish, sometimes the years go by years, doing various work in the nonprofit industry or consulting in nonprofits, where I primarily worked in the area of grants, progressively from grant writer, grant manager, director, senior director. Also have worked in contracts, government relations, and of course, whenever you're in development, you also work on events and major gifts and bequests and all of the things. So I'm really excited to be joining you all today to talk about a topic that I think is very near and dear to my heart and experience.
Awesome. Thank you. So, as mentioned, this month's topic is Beyond the Pen, why grant readiness trumps grant writing. What's your thoughts around that topic as a whole?
I think it's necessary, for
Mhm.
sure. I think that it is something that I try to tell anyone that, whether it's a student in my classroom or a workshop that I'm leading or a discussion, the idea of preparation should not be an idea, but it should be um, an absolute, if you will. It's an absolute action. To prepare when you're writing grants is to make the element of success that much more real and that much more fully developed. So it's a topic that I think is needed because I believe that now, especially more than ever, we're in such a competitive nature for nonprofits to get those dollars because there's so many more nonprofits now, there's so much more need, and we may feel like there's a finite amount of money to go around, and so we want to be in a rush to write those proposals, and win them. But without proper preparation, there can be potholes that you create for yourself or for your organization that you didn't necessarily need to had you really slowed down and planned first.
Uh, so can we talk a little bit about some of those potholes?
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that I always have said before is that it's the 80-20 rule. Grant writing is 80% preparation, 20% writing. And too many people think that it's the other way around, that you get something, you have an idea, and all of a sudden it's off to the races. Every organization is, of course, different in the structure. So you may have a full development team with a grant writer or two, and they are all discussing what they're going to write about. But then you may have other organizations that either maybe you don't have a proper grant writer, or you have a volunteer grant writer, or the executive director is doing the grant writing, and you know that you need money for this potential project, so you just write and you just start. And so when you have some of those potholes, what can happen is that number one, you are not writing for the correct alignment with an organization, with the fit. Perhaps you have seen, a funder give a lot of money to another organization by way of news media. And you're like, well, we need that. That is, they've got money. Let me write to them. And you do, but there's a misalignment there. And what could also happen is that depending on how many applications a funder gets, if there's a misalignment, sometimes the funder is wondering, did you even study? Do you know who they are? Do you know who they fund? And that can prove to be damaging from a reputational standpoint as well. And also, let's say that you're writing something that you actually can theoretically do, that the program or the mission itself does match and is in alignment. But let's say you don't have the capacity really to handle the type of grant dollars that they're going to give you, or the type of grant that they want, or program award that they want to give you, whether it's primarily through resources, so person power, the time, the experience, et cetera, et cetera. But let's say they take a chance and they give you that grant because you have told them you've got this expertise and this, that, and the third, but you don't really have the capacity. If you have to, or if, by way of accepting the grant, you are now beholden to those particular parameters. And if that's something that you're not able to do, then that also could put your grant dollars at jeopardy, as well as your reputation again. So those are just a couple of potential pothole examples that, without the proper planning first, it could lead to poor execution later.
I love that. And I have a few follow up questions regarding that. One is because you touched on the organization that may not necessarily have a grant writing development team, and it may be the executive director, interns, things like that. um, what recommendation would you have for those particular organizations when they started, they have a passion, they do feel like they're at a stage of grant readiness? Like, what are some of those signs that shows them that, yeah, you are, keep going? Um, so what are some of the recommendations you'll have to them when they're getting ready to start this grant writing journey? Um, and and I- and I've heard of organizations not feeling equipped enough.
Mhm.
Feeling like I have to go get the grant writer. I can't be the person to do it. I don't know, like intimidated by just the grant process as a whole. What are some tips, recommendations, thoughts you would have for those organizations that's early on in that this journey?
So I would say that the first thing is, it's of course natural to feel intimidated by the process, but really, if you chunk it out and go slowly, you can find success there. So it's really, the first thing I'd say is, take a breath, and then, let's ease on into what you need to do. So if you are an organization that at this time, either you don't have a professional grant writer, you can't hire a professional grant writer, so you either have to do it yourself, or find a volunteer, or find an intern to do it for you. The first thing for success that you need to have at the outset is, well, a couple of things. So I won't necessarily go in order because you can flow in and out of this. You need to have a toolkit. That toolkit should be now, since many proposals are online, that toolkit should be a folder on your computer where you have all of the documents that are going to be generally required during submission. So that is your tax paperwork, your 501c3, most of the time, sometimes C4, C6, whatever the IRS has designated you to be. That's going to be your first and foremost piece of paper that you want to keep a copy of. You also want to keep a copy of your programmatic budget, your organizational budget. If your organization is able to audit or have an audit, your audited financial statements. Really good if you've got the last 3 years of audited financial statements, but again, that may not be the case for everybody. So just as many as you can. Three is usually where you want to go. Very occasionally, they'll ask for more than that, for longer than that. But you want to have those things. You also want to have your organizational chart. So, again, just a listing of all who works inside of the organization, your board list, and how long they've been on the board, as well as those individuals' affiliations. And maybe even a little biography of people who are associated with the program itself, who are going to be the people who are executing the program, so on and so forth. Those are your toolkits. Those are the things that you will not change very often, maybe annually, maybe a couple times a year, but they're there so that you can pull from them and not have to waste time running around asking everyone, hey, do you have this? Do you have this? When you're nearing deadline. It just cuts down on a whole lot of time as well. The other thing is you have to, when you're starting off writing a grant, you have to be realistic of like what you want versus what you need versus what you can handle. And in doing that, that's almost like a capacity building analysis. You may want $10 million. Who amongst us does not? And you may only need $1 million, but you may only have the capacity to engage in a program for $100,000. So you have to be very realistic and almost cutthroat to the point of saying, what can we do? Do we have the ability to run a program weekly to make sure that we spend down that type of money that would be given to us? Or do we really only have the ability to run this program monthly? Because if you've got a great proposal, many funders would love to be able to give you those dollars. But the one thing they want to make sure that you can do is actually execute the way that you say that you're going to. And sometimes when you have so much in the gift, that you're like, what are we going to do with all of this money? How are we going to spend all this down? It sometimes is honestly too much. And in those cases, of course, you can be honest with your funder about it being too much. But even before that, only ask for what you need and what you can handle. And that, before you even write that, is really honed at the discussion table. So again, it's a lot of it is preparation. It's not just jumping into it and saying, we need to do this, we need to write this, we need to do that. What do you want to do? What does your program look like? Who are you realistically going to serve? How many people are you going to serve? Is this weekly? Is this monthly? Is this bi-monthly? Whatever the case it is. Those are the questions that help answer exactly how you're going to spend down any gift, and make sure that your request is the correct request. And the last thing is, if you are intimidated by writing, I would suggest take a writing course. Take a grant writing course. There are free resources. I know myself, I'll do a little shameless plug, but over at UCF, we have a capacity building workshop in both Osceola and Orange counties that are there to prepare organizations for writing grants, whether they're large or small, or moving into that next step of fundraising and ensuring that you have the capacity to do that. And we've also got a financial capacity workshop as well. And all of these are free of charge. So if those are things that you're interested in, there's also other organizations that do grant writing services, or maybe a certificate, or just go on to the internet and do a nice Google search sometimes and just see what are the grant writing resources, and just write. Get comfortable with mentioning your mission, your values, your organizational history, what makes you different than your neighbor, and why should someone reach into their pocket. Just, it's like an elevator speech. If you were going to walk up to a stranger and you were going to ask them for money, or to be a partner, or and donate, what is it about you that's gonna make them wanna do that? What is it about your organization that's gonna wanna make someone give up their hard-earned money, to do that? You gotta find that hook. So those are all things that, again, require time, preparation, writing it down, and then Xing it out and throwing it out, or getting someone else, on your board or on your team to review it as well. And that's how you can kinda help jumpstart that grant writing.
I love that. And I love to tell like founder led organization, who better to tell your story than you? Because
Exactly.
you started it, there's a passion behind it, there's a reason behind it. Who better to tell the story? And I know sometimes the writing piece can be a little intimidating, but there's ways to work around that writing piece. But at least you being able to kind of communicate, you know what your story, whether it's in writing form or just to someone who can help with the writing portion. That's I feel that's a very important part of that grant writing process.
Absolutely. A lot of it is, it's writing, it's refinement. I know that we are living in this age of AI as well, where people are using
Mhm.
AI to write their proposals for them. And what I would caution everyone is, not to have AI be your crutch to do the writing for you. There are funders that want to hear from you, they want to hear your tone. And as someone who has reviewed grants, who will be reviewing a set of grants in the coming weeks. I know that we can tell, especially if you get amongst some seasoned reviewers, they honestly can tell the difference between a human voice and a computer generated one. And so sometimes you need tools to help, or to kind of get your mind to be like, all right, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? How does this sound? But don't underestimate your story, and don't underestimate the power of your human voice. That is where the connection is. And nowadays, think about this: if everyone is using AI, what sets you apart? It's your human voice, it's
Mhm.
your story. So definitely lean into that for sure.
Something you mentioned earlier was talking about your reputation being impacted, especially when you fall into a lot of those potholes. I'd like to kind of talk a little bit more about that. Reputation, because something you think about, like especially when it comes to grant writing, it could feel like you're not necessarily building a relationship, because most of the time with some funders, like you don't ever get to meet them beyond the submission.
Mhm.
But the reality is, on the other side, someone is reviewing it and a relationship is being built, whether you feel it or not. So I like to dive kind of a little bit deeper into that reputation relationship component when it comes into grant writing.
Absolutely. Um, I would actually say that most nonprofits, even in the grant side of house, are going to find their most ardent supporters, fervent supporters, consistent supporters within a local radius. So they're going to
Mm.
be people who that are going to be in your backyard. It isn't where most of the time all your money is going to come from, like, the Gates Foundation, or from Apple, or from something that's big and far away. They're going to be from foundations that are located right where you are. They're going to be from family foundations that know exactly what streets you're on. They're going to be people who know the layout in the area, alongside you. And so I would say, knowing that there is probably more than ever an opportunity for a grant writer to have a face to face, or at the very least, a phone conversation with another funder. And they like that. If there's a possibility to contact a funder, take it. Even if it's just to simply introduce yourself and say, hi, my name is Angela White Jones. I am the grant manager with blah, 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 or fund foundation or organization, and I read your website. I thought what you're doing is excellent. It aligns very well with our mission, which is to do blah, 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 blah. We want to submit a proposal for our new project. May I have some time to talk to you a little bit about that to see if that is the right fit before we send it? Oftentimes, you get those funders who are appreciative of you contacting them, and asking if this is the right fit, particularly if you've mentioned, I've visited your website, I see that there's alignment. I just wanted to make sure that we are writing a proposal that meets the time for both of us. It shows due diligence and effort. If you don't see a contact, they probably don't want you to contact them, and that's okay. There are organizations that do want you to do a little bit of a cold proposal, and those are a little bit more tricky. But even the small things where it's sending a letter on top of your proposal, thank you so much for your consideration. We appreciate what it is that you are doing in the community, and we'd love to partner with you on this particular project. And if you do get a hold of someone, also ask them to come and visit if you can. If you have the type of organization where you can tour them around, where they can meet people, where they can see what their dollars would and who their dollars would be helping face to face and up close. Those are the things that now aids in relationship building as well. And at least in Central Florida, the fundraising community is large, but not really. So when we do talk about reputation, if you are not approaching it with a level of professionalism, then people talk. We don't want them to, but they do.
Mhm.
And so even if it's just a simple, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your effort. We appreciate all the things that you do. Thank you for reading the submission. Things like that. They go a long, long way. But if there's a contact them, talk to them, reach out to them, email them. And just, again, it doesn't have to be an hour. It can be a 5 minute, 7 minute conversation that's very targeted. I would recommend making sure that if they do have a website, you've gone on it, you've kind of done your own due diligence before you chat with them, just so that they know you're coming to the table seriously. But have those conversations, ask those questions. If you're unsure about anything in your proposal, now is the time to do it, as opposed to, trying to figure it out on your own and then submitting it. If they give you an opportunity for contact, take advantage of it every time.
Love that, love that, love that. And it's something I thought about even with the national ones where it might be hard to get in contact. A lot of them like to know that you have local relationships.
Yes,
So even if it is like an Apple or a Nike or something like that, they like to know that you somehow have engaged with the local branch that's near you as well. And that can be a way for you to start building that relationship on a national level.
absolutely. Completely agree.
Awesome, awesome. So, with that, any other tips you have around our topic beyond the pen why grant readiness trumps grant writing for our listeners before we wrap up today's session?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, um, when you plan, also, I would say, I don't think I mentioned this, but as you're planning, a calendar is still, whether or not it's a written calendar, or, and or it's some sort of database that you have, organizing your prospects are also is something that's going to put a lot of stress out off of you, to be able to say, every month, that this proposal is happening, here's what it entails. And also involve other people in this as well. Grant writers are not a silo. And so if you've got a writer They only know what you tell them. And so
Mhm.
if you don't, let them know or allow them to have meetings with other program managers, with, the budget office, with the technology people, when they get asked questions on a proposal, they're only going to be able to talk about what they know. So engage everyone in the grant process. It's not, yes, it's the writer's responsibility, of course, to write it, to submit it, to, proofread it, all that jazz. But it's the organization's dollar, and it's the organization's reputation, remember, that's on the line. And so don't let your grant writer just be without resources. If you've got someone in house that's doing it, whether it's the intern, whether it's the volunteer person, or whether it's the paid staff, allow them to talk to other members of the organization to ensure, hey, I just wanted to make sure that the budget is accurate, that it totals out correctly, that I'm giving them something that is for public use and consumption.
Mhm.
Or if you're talking to the program person, maybe the program person has no idea you're writing a grant for their program.
Mhm.
And they may be like, well, we just lost two people that do this. So I have to hire. So I don't know if I can do that. Like, if you don't talk to each other, that can make waves, basically. And so, involve yourself and talk to that program manager and say, hey, we've got this great opportunity for a grant that would fund the program that you manage. Is this something that you think you could do? If we have reporting, we have to do this monthly. Are these numbers that you can give me monthly? Is
Mhm.
this something that we can work out? Those are the questions that need to happen ahead of time before you submit, rather than rushing to just jump on the opportunity, because that is going to make you much more successful.
I love that. Yes. Grant writing is not an island, because so oftentimes organizations just bring in a grant writer, feel like check, that's solved, and kind of have, the grant writer work, but not integrate them into their organization where they can like learn more, get immersed in the mission. So that makes writing a lot easier. Nor do they share information or keep information constant. Like, hey, we're building this new program. Let's put this on the radar. Da 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 da. And so I love that you talk to that. Like, it's important for the grant writer to be a part of your organization, speaking to your program team, learning more, because it helps them through the writing process. It's not hire a grant writer and they got this, kind
Right.
of thing. And actually, that's the most, if you do that, you're going to be irritated when you win the grant, because they're going to put all types of fun stuff in there that when you get ready to execute, you're going to be like, what? We're doing what?
Mhm. Exactly. You can't Everybody's gotta know. They've gotta know what's happening. The most successful, and honestly, I think the program managers love that too, because the last thing that they
Hmm.
want is additional work that it's like, "Oh, now I gotta go and calculate numbers, and now I gotta go and make sure that I have this." But if everyone is on the same page with what they're expected, with what you can do, with what will be accomplished, then that's when people start getting excited about it. That's when they're
Hmm.
like, "Oh, someone in development is working for me too. They're working to help and make my job easier." And you become a lot more valuable that way. And so, yeah, it's just important to make sure everybody is involved.
Love it, love it. So, how can those tuning in, if they want to get in touch or keep in contact, follow your journey, how can they do that?
Yes. So, probably the best way to do it is I'm on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Angela Jones. And my old picture, but still one that looks like me, will pop up. And you can also email me if you've got any questions about, some of the work that I do, at angela.white-jones at ucf.edu. But I think LinkedIn is probably the best place that I usually, when I do update and I need to be better, I will be better at doing that more, because I'm not the greatest. But that's where you can find a lot of the projects that I'm working on and the things that I'm doing as well there.
Love it, love it. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. So we're glad that you came back. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.